Okay, welcome to part 6 of 2 Signs and Coincidences from God. True stories, folks. True stories. And this one is really good. This one is really good. So I'm gonna get into it here. Earlier in the afternoon, Chad stopped by wearing a Boston shirt, his favorite band, and said that he didn't know if he was going to be able to play guitar tonight. Now, originally, he kind of just said, I don't think I'm going to be able to come over tonight. And I'm like, oh, I had this thought, like, oh, he doesn't want to come around and hang with the Jesus freak anymore. Or he's giving me some excuse. But then he said, no, he had split open his thumb. And he didn't bring any. He split open his thumb jacking up his camper. Um, but he said he didn't bring a guitar pick with him to strum his guitar. And I told him that, if I were to be able to get him a guitar pick, would he be then able to play? And he's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And I'm like, well, gosh, I know guys backstage. I know the Mountain Ash guys backstage. I'll go back there and I'll get you a guitar pick. No problem. He's like, oh, okay, sweet. you know. And I'm just thinking, sometime later I'll go backstage, I'll flag one of those guys down, and I'll get a guitar pick. I wasn't even worried about it. Um, I told him that I would find one, as I knew the Mountain Ash guys backstage he would be able to get me one. Just then, after telling him this, a strong thought came over me to get up and run and go backstage and find him a pick. I literally heard a voice say to me, get up and go now. And you got, I thought about it for a moment, but here's the deal. I'm sitting where I'm sitting when this happened. I'm in a lawn chair out away from our camper and our tent. My dad and my uncle are sitting under the canopy in the shade. I'm out in the sun. There's nobody around me. There's nobody anywhere around me. My dad and my uncle are 25, 30 feet away, and they're talking with each other. I'm all by myself. There's nobody. Get up and go now. Okay, I thought about it for a moment, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, get up and go now. At first, I'm thinking, go where? Do what? And then I'm thinking, well, maybe it's this pick thing. Do I got to go and get this pick now? I mean, it's all I could think of, but I'm still thinking about it. I'm still kind of going, get up and go now. I'm still kind of stunned. What did I just hear? I'm just kind of like, what? And then I hear it again, a little stronger and louder, kind of a little more firm too. Get up and go now. So I did. I walked through the north gate. All right. I got up and I started walking through the north gate. And then I heard, as I walked through the north gate, I heard, go faster. So I started kind of like running up the small hill towards the center of the Jam Fairgrounds. I'm kind of like, running, speed walk, shuffling. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just obeying the commands. I then headed east and I started to run towards the main stage where I knew I would be able to find Chad, a pick, if I could catch one of the Mountain Ash guys. Just as I turned and headed that way, Kevin from Mountain Ash was walking straight at me. Wow, I thought, how convenient was this? I told him of the situation, that I needed a guitar pick. He looked in his pockets as he was sure he had some monogrammed picks with Mountain Ash written on them. I thought, oh wow, that would be really nice to have one of those. As he felt around in his pockets, he could not find one. Actually, I'm gonna put it right there. He couldn't find one, and he was miffed. He was like, I could have swore I had like a dozen of them. He checked like all of his pockets. He was like, now he was getting bummed. He's like, where are all my picks? He was just like, wow. He couldn't believe it. Um, so then he couldn't find one, and then he told me to follow him to an area that was behind another stage so that he could get me one. Uh, you see where, anyway, he took two steps and then he stopped. He said, oh, wait just a minute. Um, I think he said, wait just a minute, Flipster, because he knew my nickname. But I have something even better for you, Flipster. Oh, there it is. He pulled out his wallet and he dug into the crevice of it down deep into the corner. So he opens up his wallet and he digs down in there. And he handed me a pick that he had gotten backstage from one of the band members of the band Boston, who had just played the night before. I thanked Kevin and I went on my way back to find Chad. Not only was I needing to find him and a pick, or not only was I needing to find him and a pick, he actually came to me with the most perfect pick. That is how God works. So you remember earlier, you get what you need right when you need it. Okay, I needed a pick. I got exactly what I needed. But a pick from God was the perfect pick. The perfect pick. I mean, I could have got him a Mountain Ash pick, especially if I would have went later and flagged Kevin down. Right? Oh, that would have been. Oh gosh. Um, where am I here? I pulled his wallet. Boston, who had just played the night before. I thanked Kevin and went on my way. Not only was I needing to find him a pick, he actually came to me with the most perfect pick. Well, he kind of came to me, and I had to go and meet him at that point. That is how God works. Had I not gotten up when I heard "Go Now," and had I not started going faster when I had the feeling to do so that came over me, I would have missed Kevin and that opportunity. It was an amazing set of signs. In order for that to have happened the way it did, I had to run into Kevin and no other band member because Kevin was the one who had the Boston pick. If I would have went backstage, other band members would have been there and I would have gotten a different pick. I also had to run into Kevin when he had no other picks on him and was not near any of his picks to be able to easily grab one of those. He really thought he had a bunch of them in his pocket, but he had none. And where I ran into him, again, we were so far away from the other stages that, I mean, it was like there was two stages, and I had to meet him in the middle. Otherwise, it was just weird. So where I met him was important. When I met him was important. It was a choreography from God. That's why God said, get up and go now. Go faster so you can meet this guy where you need to meet him. Folks, that's mind blowing. I'm just sitting there and I hear, get up and go now. Get up and go now. I'm like, wow. That just blows me away that God will talk to you. He'll tell you things. He will warn you of things. He will help you with things. But I'm thinking, why doesn't God do this all the time? Well, see, there's a reason. A reason, and if you figure this out, it can happen to you too. But when God starts doing stuff, you just gotta start telling people and sharing it. And God will keep doing it. You gotta keep telling people God's real. God's real. God does this. God loves you. God died for you. I mean, this is amazing. Well, Chad had gone back to his campsite, and I just had to find him. I knew that he would absolutely love this guitar pick. As I entered his campsite, I boldly said to all of the jammers who were camping in Chad's group that I had a gift for Chad from God. See, I didn't take the credit for this one. All I was the runner. I was the messenger guy. Okay? God choreographed this, I mean, choreographed this whole scene. This was so they all looked at me a little strangely, but were willing to see what I was talking about. Chad came out of his camper, and I placed the pick into his hand, and I said to him that it was a gift from God. Excuse me. He looked at it and could not believe his eyes. I could tell he was very amazed and full of joy. He said the main reason that he came to the jam this year was to be able to listen to the music by Boston. He had spent $30 on his new Boston t-shirt that he was currently wearing, which showed just how much this was true. He looked at the pick again and saw the logo of Boston, and he said that he would never use that to play his guitar and that he would save that pick as a souvenir. He ended up coming over to our campsite that night and he played with his sore thumb. Praise God. It probably didn't even hurt him by then. God probably healed it because he never complained or said anything about it the rest of the night. He just loved getting that. He just loved getting that pick. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that story. And that is just one of my all-time favorites. I've got so many, but that one blows me away. That one really blows me away. During our final night's campfire there, oh, final night's campfire, there were two drunkards that came across my path that I extended a hand to and helped out. The first was an older Native American fellow who just happened to pass out on the ground next to Tom and Holly's small fire near their camper. I talked to him several times and just showed him some compassion and asked him a couple of times that evening if he needed anything. He just looked at me with sincerity, and all he wanted to do was rest by the fire and keep warm for a little while. He laid there on his back, straight as an arrow, with his hands crossed over his heart. I would go over and see if he was doing okay, and he always assured me each time that he was. So we left him in peace, and later he finally did get up and go on his way. The other drunkard man, an elderly man from northern Minnesota, as he stated, was walking by our campsite just as my dad and I were heading into the Jam Fairgrounds for the staff-only party that was going on until 4 a.m. at least. It must have been about 2:30 or 3 a.m. when my dad and I were walking up to the gate just as this drunkard old man was coming by and also heading into the gate. The Jam Fairgrounds were empty, and a security crew was making sure that everyone was leaving the area. All three of us came to the north gate at the exact same time the security crew of about 6 men was there closing the gate. They would not let us in. My dad and I talked with the security crew, and they still would not let us in. I quickly thought in my mind that I knew God's favor was upon us, and I knew He was with me. I knew we were going to get in, and I just kept a very positive attitude, and I had a lot of faith that it would be so. My dad mentioned to them that we were going to the staff party to see our friends from the Mountain Ash Band. He told them to call them on their radios and check and see. My dad said that with confidence, and they agreed to let us in. But then they said that the old man could not go with us. I thought. The old man then said that he needed to go through the fairgrounds and go out the east gate. The security guys said that he could not go that way. I then said to them that my dad and I would escort him all the way through. They strongly said to us that if we made sure he got all the way through, that they would let us go in. And so they opened the gate and let us in. We walked over to the east gate and it was closed. So we continued walking into the fairgrounds, and as we walked, we saw the empty stage with a few lights on, and there happened to be 3 plastic chairs left out in the seating area. All 3 of us sat down and had a conversation. I sat in the middle of my dad and our new old friend. We talked and stared up at the stage where a single light shone down in the center of it, where a single stool had been dimly lit by one of the lights. As we talked, the old man said a few things that I do not remember clearly, but that I thought was a bit odd. We told him about how we make websites and that we come to this event every year and take photos and stuff like that. The old man said to me that he didn't like all of the mean postings on the Jam bulletin board online. He also didn't like all of the pornography on the internet. What struck me odd about this is that most of the older folks I know do not even have access to the internet. They are not computer savvy, and I am sure that internet access from the small northern town that he was from was very limited at best. There's another missing line. We then got up from our chairs and headed over by the south gate and where the music was coming from. We told him that we would take him into the party as long as he behaved himself. My dad told him that. It was kind of humorous, I thought, as one 60-year-old man, my dad, told this to another 60-something-year-old man. And just like a child, the old man said he would be really good and would not get out of line. So in we went and listened to the band. There was an entire buffet of free food and plenty of free drinks. We all just sat and talked a bit more and each had a drink. I was going to fetch the drinks and I asked my dad and the old guy what they wanted. My dad wanted a beer. I said I was just going to get a pop, and the old man said that he would take a Coke as well. We drank our drinks and then left. As we left, I felt the need to see that that old man continued on his way out the south gate, as we had promised the security staff. As I watched him go, my dad started heading for the north gate, where we were camping. I told my dad to go ahead without me, and I followed the old man out the south gate. He saw me and seemed nervous. He was now not stumbling or acting drunk at all. He was walking very quickly. I caught up to him. We both used a couple of porta potties along the way. He then told me that he could make it the rest of the way, and I bid him farewell. About an hour ago, this guy could barely walk without stumbling and nearly falling over. Now he was walking a straight line and quick. He showed no sign of drunkenness. He moved very well for an older fellow. We didn't eat anything, and we only had one drink. The whole thing about meeting this man and helping him and uh, talking to him just seemed unique. Have you ever thought about God coming to you as an actual person incognito? I had that thought. My dad asked me when I returned why I followed him. I just said that I wanted to make sure he got out the south gate okay, and that he was able to go around the corner and head east like he wanted to. I was surely not going to tell my dad of the quick notion I had. It would have been silly. Or would it have? Boy, I gotta figure this out. Why that's doing that. Well, anyway, what I think about this is that this guy knew too much about the internet. A lot of older folks didn't know that. This guy was drunk. He couldn't walk straight. You should have seen this guy walking so drunk. I mean, guys, he was floored drunk. I mean, he goes and has one Coke and now he's perfectly fine. I don't know. I My thought is that this was possibly an angel, and that's what I think. What I said there, could it have been God incognito? Well, I don't know. The guy said all the right things, you know. Um, he didn't like the meanness on the chat. He didn't like the internet porn. I'm like, I don't even think that guy had ever even been on the internet. Um, I don't know. From what I gathered, there was just something odd. I mean, just something odd about that whole meeting. It says you entertain strangers unaware, and it might be an angel. I'm just thinking that's a possibility with this guy. It was just one of those odd deals. I arrived back to the campsite, and the sky was starting to lighten, and soon the sun would be rising. Melissa was there, and so was Amy. They were sitting around the fire still and mentioned to me that Melissa had lost her 2 rings. She had taken them off somewhere and could not find them and thought that they were lost. I walked around and tried to help her find them. I was sure that they would show up somewhere. But the sun was rising, and my attention was turned towards that. I wanted to help her find her rings, but something was coming over me to want to watch the sun rise. I would look for the rings in the grass and then look at the horizon. I would look for the rings some more and look at the horizon. And then I saw the sun rise like a gift that morning. It may be a coincidence, it may not. I know in my heart that the signs given to me, which came back for the second time at the Moondance Jam, came from God. That morning, while the sun was rising, and Melissa, whose last name was Rising, was there standing, unhappy about losing her rings, I knew my life had changed in a great way. I went to bed. I was tired and I slept until noon. I woke up and most of the jammers were gone. My dad and I slowly packed up the canopy and the other things around our site, and after a while, there were only 2 campers left in the entire North Camping area, ours and another one. As my dad and I sat and took a break from packing, I looked over and saw 2 people sitting by their camper. They were looking at us, we at them. The jam was over. We were second to last to leave. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I got to try and figure out why these lines are popping off, so I am going to end part. Oh, this is part 6. I'm going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed that, because that was a life-changing day there. God did some amazing, amazing things. And you can't just make stuff like this up. I got plenty of witnesses, and these are miracles. These are signs that are just miraculous. And to me, they just meant so much. So I really appreciate you guys staying tuned. If you've already watched through to part 6, the rest of the story is just gonna just keep on going and keep on going, and there are some more amazing, amazing things that are gonna happen. So thank you again for listening, and I hope you come back and watch part 7. All right, you guys take care. God bless.